Good morning, class. This is Group 4, and we will be presenting Chapter 9 from the Educational Psychology textbook. So far, we've learned about complex cognitive processes, human memory, and the principles of cognitive learning theory. And now we're going to introduce two more important theories that you should take with you in the classroom. These are behaviorism and social cognitive theory. So, what are they? Behaviorism is a theory that explains learning in terms of observable behaviors and how they're influenced by stimuli from the environment. Behaviorism has two major components, classical conditioning and operant conditioning. But let's talk about classical conditioning first. It is a component of behaviorism that focuses on the emotional and physiological responses to stimuli from the environment. But let's be real, these definitions from the textbook are kind of hard to understand, so I think it's best I give you an example to really explain this concept. Let's take it from the founder of classical conditioning, Russian scientist Ivan Pavlov. In his famous experiment, he showed dogs some food while ringing a bell at the same time. After a while, the dogs would associate the bell with the food. They would learn that when they heard the bell, they would get fed. Eventually, just ringing the bell, the dogs would salivate. We call the food unconditioned stimulus, and we call salivation the unconditioned response. No one trains a dog to salivate over some steak, but when you pair an unconditioned stimulus with something that was previously neutral and didn't impact one's behavior, that neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus. By associating the bell with food, the learned physiological response of salivating produced a conditioned response. Make sense? Another important aspect about classical conditioning is generalization and discrimination. And no, this isn't about Donald Trump's political campaign. Generalization is the process that occurs when a stimuli similar but not identical to conditioned stimulus provokes the conditioned response by themselves. Discrimination is the opposite. It's the process that occurs when a person gives different responses to a related but not identical stimuli. In psychology, extinction refers to the gradual weakening of a conditioned response that results in the behavior disappearing. In classical conditioning, this happens when a conditioned stimulus is no longer paired with an unconditioned stimulus. Now, let's move on to operant conditioning. Operant conditioning shows how consequences lead to changes in voluntary behavior, and there are two main components in this: reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcers make it more likely that you'll do something again. This process applies reinforcers to increase a certain behavior. According to the text, it comes in two forms, positive and negative, but that doesn't mean it refers to good or bad. Positive reinforcement means the addition of a stimulus to increase a behavior, like getting a piece of cake after eating your veggies. And negative means the removal of a stimulus to increase a behavior, like getting a night of no homework because you did good on a test. Shaping, or behavior shaping, is a variant of operant conditioning. Instead of waiting for a subject to exhibit a desired behavior, any behavior leading to the target behavior is rewarded. Let's say you have a student who is shy and you want to help that child develop socially. You can start by reinforcing him to interact with his peers through small acts and rewarding him along the way till he reaches the desired behavior, like smiling more, then greeting other students, and then prolonged conversations. With operant conditioning, it's important to know that timing and spacing of reinforcers have different effects on learning. These effects are illustrated in reinforcement schedules, which is a tool in operant conditioning that allows the trainer to control the timing and frequency of reinforcements in order to trigger a target behavior. We have continuous and intermittent reinforcement schedules. Continuous, meaning all behaviors are being reinforced, and intermittent has only some of the desired behaviors being reinforced. Two types of intermittent schedules exist, ratio and interval schedules, and each influence behavior differently. Ratio depends on behavior, interval depends on time. Both can be reinforced either predictably or unpredictably.
Created using Part1.